Just how do you feel about the ACC right now and where they are? What have kind of some of those conversations been like recently?
Yeah, certainly the changing landscape and therefore the finances of it, Matt, has never been more dynamic. We're incredibly fortunate to have President Clements for as well read and as connected as he is within the athletics space to help lead us and recognize that. And our board, again, is incredibly well read and gives time to understand it. The uncertainty of it is, as I said, never been more dynamic. My job is to always position Clemson best we can. Commissioner Phillips and how we are working within the ACC. It's been written about that there's some committees that are looking at just uneven revenue distribution, other revenue opportunities that the ACC is looking to add, sure, TV negotiations, et cetera. So that's been well written about and very, very invested and spent a lot of bandwidth along with Jim, with President Clements on that. And so how we balance what we can forecast the future to be from a revenue standpoint, certainly that guides where we can commit from an expense standpoint. But I've never been more convicted and convinced of where Clemson is positioned within the landscape, our ability and our support of IPTAY and our fans to continue to drive revenue to help make business decisions like this possible.
How hard is it to try to, I guess, balance that when there's some uncertainty there, but you're also, committing more and more?
Yeah, this is a 10-year outlay, and the landscape is, to have that length of horizon, it's tough. Gosh, you lose confidence, so to speak, in the projections the further you go out, of course. So, but that's where, again, commitment from our board, David, we've talked about the alignment that feel so convinced of the commitment that's going to continue to be there from Clemson for us to continue to invest in anticipation and with strategy that the finances and the business is going to continue to be there to support it.
You mentioned trying to do what's best for Clemson and the revenue gap between conferences. Is it Clemson's intention to try to stick around with the ACC long term, or is it possible that you guys join another conference, just long term speaking?
Yeah, again, focus, as you said, Davis. My job is to focus on Clemson and make sure we're as well positioned and well read for the long term. And so we'll continue to focus there. That being said, the work and the support within the ACC has been strong. Commissioner Phillips has led well, been incredibly transparent, and has everything's on the table, to quote Commissioner, about strategies. And so I've talked about this, I think, in the earlier in the winter when I transitioned roles. I'm very thoughtful. I try to be mindful of, being newer to this role still. And having the decorum and the relationships within our league as such, but also very much recognizing it's Clemson and the brand and the importance that we have within the league. And so how we lead, and I'm fortunate to be on some committees within the league that are by design, as is Jim. And so I think that balance of minding and looking out for Clemson, of course, and the other athletic directors in our league would absolutely, that's our charge. But also doing it in concert to help further and grow the ACC from a business positioning is that balance that we try to strike.
Momentous news last Friday with the expansion of the playoffs. President Clements obviously on the board of managers, so he voted to pass that. Obviously, the 14 playoffs has been very good to Clemson. Just your thoughts on the expansion as it relates to Clemson.
Yeah, you're right. We're fortunate that Jim is one of the votes and one of the voices, one of the stronger voices, of course, in that room. We're excited about it. We're excited about the opportunity to go to 12. To your point, Trevor, 4 has been great for Clemson. We've been 6 out of 7 years, 6 out of the 8 total. One of the things I really get excited about for the expanded, what the bracket looks like, and I know it may be 26 at the latest and maybe 25 or 24 as the commissioners start to dive into the logistics, is the opportunity that it could have here for the Valley. And as we know, that the 12 bracket, that top 4 get a bye, and that's obviously going to be our goal to buy ahead within the bracket. But seeds 5 through 8 get to potentially, again, in theory right now, or as discussed, get to host a game on campus. And so to have a game out here, if we're in that 5 to 8 range potentially, and what that can mean for our fan base, season ticket base, community, economic impact, that's a new thing that gets us all really excited, especially here at Clemson. And so there's a lot of pros and cons to expansion, no question. And we think about player safety and additional games and how we can enact more benefits to the student athletes and the players. So absolutely, that's going to be where a lot of the rubber meets the road on, hey, how's this going to work? So very mindful of that, and we've had a lot of discussions here on campus, Coach Sweeney, President Clemens, and then certainly through the league. But excited about where this could go, how the support and the platform that will continue to give the student athletes, and then ultimately how that'll help drive brand and local impact here at Clemson.
Is it possible that playoff expansion helps the ACC as far as just having a guaranteed spot in the playoff and financially?
Yeah, with how how Matt it's currently construed is that the top 6 conference champions, so it's not necessarily guaranteed for the ACC, but one would think that the ACC champion is going to be well positioned, and then more at large bids beyond that. So I think certainly that's a reaction from the ACC that this is going to just provide more opportunity for league, and I'm sure there's been a lot of analysis of the years past and what the scenarios would have been, but I think for as much as Clemson has carried the banner and certainly had a lot of playoff access, I think the rest of the leagues has the excitement around it as well.
Any more?
What else?
Graham, with the grant of rights obviously gets a lot of attention as it relates to the ACC. I'm just curious if you think, have you, the conference or Clemson, maybe with the help of legal counsel, looked into that and see if there's a way to get out of that or restructure that or however that might work?
We've certainly looked at it, just by way of our association with the ACC, not with that intent necessarily, Davis, but just to understand what the parameters are, and particularly the grant of rights being a stability strength of the ACC. There's a lot of really good value and opportunity with the grant of rights, and so that binds us, and there's a lot to be said for that. And I think it allows the ACC to operate from a position of strength related to membership affiliations and revenue opportunities or contract TV negotiations, etc. So again, we're making sure to always focus and position Clemson as best we can. That certainly means that we need to be well read on our contractual agreements, and the grant of rights is certainly a key part of that. But it's all with a focus of, hey, how does that give us opportunity within the ACC to strengthen the position?
What are some other possible revenue streams that you think could help you maybe close that gap between the Big Ten and the SEC schools are getting?
Yeah, one of the things that we've really led with here, and we launched it in February, is Clemson Plus. And uniquely, we've talked about the business plan with that it's not a transactional monthly subscription. We've added it as a benefit to IPTAY members. And you can join today if you don't have Clemson Plus, but you need to join IPTAY. And we think the long game of growing IPTAY as a base and membership really helps financially, or really will help support the future financial positioning of Clemson. I answered that question, your question, Davis, which is more of a conference question about what we're doing at Clemson, because I think that the notion of that from a media storytelling, sponsorship, how we integrate sponsorship and revenue opportunities within that, I think from what we understand, that concept, this project, is something that the ACC is going to look at more in aggregate, and how do we continue to consolidate content, games, etc. From a conference standpoint, and how do we maybe sponsor and monetize that? So that's one example that at Clemson we're bullish on how we've led with this Clemson Plus product, and how now as we tick into football season, how we continue to push and promote that through IPTAY. I think that's one example of how the ACC is looking to consolidate rights and content and maybe monetize it that way.
I think when you look at the Big Ten getting $7 billion or whatever it was media rights deal, yeah, and then poaching the Pac-12, the SEC, bringing in Texas and Oklahoma, they're going to have a big media deal. If I'm hearing you right, you're saying, yes, we're in the ACC, we support the ACC, we want to make this work, but your main focus is, I'm going to take care of Clemson first. Is that right? That would make the fans, I think, feel better about the way Clemson's positioned, but can you say that?
Yeah, you articulated it really well. And that's certainly my charge here at Clemson, and I take my cues from President Clemens and our board. And so we're always going to act in the best interest of Clemson, and that means being certainly, again, well read throughout the landscape, but also certainly focusing and being a leader within the ACC to help drive revenue and positioning of our conference. So that's a great balance how you struck it.
Got time to take one more?
How do you kind of assess the athletic department as a whole, kind of coming out of the peak of the pandemic in terms of finances, what you got going on?
Listen, all about championships and winning on the field from the competitive lens, of course, and we're an industry with a scoreboard, and so wins and losses matter. But beyond that, and I think where Clemson's different, always has been, and the fit and feel that I have for my role and how we further Clemson is how we do it. And again, I know we're wrapping up, and I'll maybe end where we began, specifically with Coach Sweeney, but this extends to the rest of our coaches and people. His character, ethics, morals, certainly from a compliant manner, from rules and regulations, that even extends into NIL and how we're positioning and being aggressive from a name, image, and likeness standpoint for our student athletes, but doing it the right way and with integrity. So I think your point of want to win, and have expectations on the field, court, gyms, etc., to win, and we're investing in resourcing as such with those expectations. But we need to continue to do it as Clemson is, not change keep Clemson, and that means winning, but that also means doing it the right way with integrity and morals and ethics. And Coach Sweeney is a shining example of that. But I think as we position the athletics department with people and priorities, that'll remain the guiding light.